Well, I was not expecting this. Ahoy and welcome to the land of rewind reviews. In this video I wanted to take a look at something that really surprised me, and that is the first season of Netflix's live action adaptation of One Piece. Based on the long-running manga series from Eiichiro Oda, One Piece follows a young pirate captain and his crew as they set out across the seas to claim the title of Pirate King and to discover the mythical treasure known as the One Piece. The first season, released in 2023, was directed by Mark Jobst, Tim Southern, Emma Sullivan and Joseph Kubota-Wiladika, with writers Lindsay Gelfand, Tom Hindman, Stephen Mader, Matt Owens, Alison Weintraub, Tiffany Greschler, Ian Stokes, Diego Gutierrez, Laura Jackman and Damani Johnson, and features a huge cast including Iñaki Godoy, Emily Rudd, McKenyu, Vincent Reagan, Morgan Davis, Aidan Scott, Armand Ocamp, Jacob Romero, Jeff Ward, Taz Schuyler, McKinley Bletcher III, Craig Fairbass, Peter Gadoy, Stephen John Ward, Alexander Maniatis, Langley Kirkwood and Celeste Lutz. Right, confession time. I've never actually seen the original anime of this show, and I haven't actually read the manga either, so my knowledge of this series in general is pretty much zero. I'd seen the characters around and I did recognise them. I do engage with art websites. One of my high school friends was very into anime, and I have seen the characters around at Comic-Con, including ones that have yet to appear in live action, but I had no idea who they were or what they were from. So when Netflix announced that they were going to be doing a live action adaptation of One Piece, I didn't really think anything of it. Plus, based on Netflix's track record of adapting anime into live action, and in fairness, that goes for most of Hollywood's attempts over the years, with things like Dragon Ball Evolution and Death Note being among them. Although I thought Ghost in the Shell was pretty alright, and Alita was pretty great too, and even Scott Pilgrim, but in fairness that wasn't even based on an anime. Okay, they have made some good stuff over the years, but unfortunately the bad stuff tends to overshadow them. So even if I was a fan of the One Piece anime series, I don't think that I would have been looking forward to this live action adaptation. I did become quite tempted to actually give the anime series a look when I started seeing the trailers for this series. And then I saw the episode counts and no chance. I do not have that kind of time. There's over 1,000 episodes and it's still going. Over 1,000 One Piece episodes with 1 million more on the way. But then the first season released and the buzz around it was actually pretty positive. So good in fact that I thought, you know what, let's give the first episode a go. 8 episodes over a weekend binge later and yeah, it's pretty good. It's a straight up swashbuckling action adventure series with comedy, fantasy and a lot of heart. The story of this show is all about a character called Monkey D. Luffy as he goes after a legendary treasure known as the One Piece in an attempt to become king of the pirates. And for the most part this is the main overarching story that links the series together, but unlike a lot of modern TV shows, it actually does feel like a TV series with each episode focusing on a different adventure or character. And in total there's 8 episodes in season 1 of One Piece, with each episode running between about 50 to 60 minutes long. But the stories can extend over 2 or more episodes. It is rare to get a TV show like this nowadays, but in all honesty it makes it feel so much more satisfying because every episode does feel different and there are actual conclusions. Plus with the length of the series it means that the writers are able to give each of these characters a good and equal amount of focus. This season essentially plays out like a slow origin for the crew of the Going Merry, with the first 5 episodes being used to introduce everyone and the final 3 focusing on some of their backstories and how that shaped who they are. And who they are is excellent. The main characters in this show are incredibly likeable and charismatic, with very well realised and distinct personalities that helps for the foundation of the crew's dynamic. Iñaki Godoy plays Luffy, and it's not a question of if he can win you over, it's when. He's incredibly enjoyable and charismatic and a load of fun to watch. The character himself is genuinely great, and I like that they do start showing more layers to him as the season progresses. He just has this really infectious energy that really gets your attention and you want to see more from him. He's the kind of person you want to have around. He get you into loads of trouble, but his drive to help his friends and help them realise and fulfil their dreams without ever standing in their way genuinely makes him an incredibly likeable and engaging character, and you can easily see why the others want to stay in his crew. And that's what forms the foundation of this series, the themes of friendship and what it is that dreams can lead people to do. The other characters are also great, with McKenyu playing the triple sword wielding badass Roronoa Zoro, who I was a little bit unsure of throughout the first few episodes, despite getting some amazing amazing fight scenes, because he is very emotionless and always appears calm. But over the course of the season, you see what drives him and his barriers start to come down, and I really did start liking his character a lot more, and I want to see where they go with him. And then there's the beautiful and talented Emily Rudd playing Nami, who is easily the most interesting character so far, with a genuinely heartbreaking backstory that leads to one of the most emotional scenes of this season. I think she gives the best performance from this entire season, but in all honesty, everyone is doing a great job. Plus there's two other great additions, with Jacob Romero as Usopp, who brings a lot of fun and energy to the show and proves to be a good friendly rival to Luffy, as they both see themselves as captain, even bickering over whose flag they should use. And rounding out the crew is Taz Skylar as the suave chef Sanji, and I'll be honest, he's probably my favourite character so far. He's charming and likeable, his backstory is really interesting and actually kind of shocking. I am admittedly a bit of a fussy eater, but his food does look pretty delicious. He gets some pretty decent fight, and he's that smooth a talker that I will be completely honest, I did question why so many women turn him down throughout the show. Even I swooned over some of those lines. I don't know why I admitted that. Cut to the next bit. I really grew to love this crew and I'm really excited to see more from them in the future. Plus I know there are more characters that are set to join them in the future, so if they are anywhere near as good as these ones have been, if they are given the same amount of care and attention, then I am genuinely excited to meet them. The performances throughout this season are pretty good, and I really do like who they cast for each role, including Morgan Davies as Kobe, Aidan Scott as Helmeppo, and Peter Gadoy as Shanks. I will admit, and I think this might be because it is an adaptation of the manga and the anime, there are times where the characters do act a bit odd. There are some performances in this season that to me felt a little bit flat, and then there's other performances that are really over the top, but nothing really feels out of place. This is a very over the top and very exaggerated world with some really mad ideas, so that to me might be why in a weird way it actually does kind of work. But I could see some people being a bit put off by this and finding it maybe a little bit too cheesy. I'll be honest, I think one of the biggest surprises for me was the multiple antagonists that pop up throughout this season. Not because of how many there were, but because each and every one of them is genuinely good and really memorable. The villains are really great and each feel unique, with one or two episodes built around them so you can see who they are and how they operate, with the exception of Garp, played by Vincent Regan, who appears in every episode, and Alvida, played by Ilya Izorelis Paulino, who has one appearance towards the start of episode 1 and at the end of episode 8. With Garp, I know that the anime does delve into his history, but it's quite late on when they do it, like hundreds of episodes pass before they actually reveal anything. In this season, they do actually address his connection with the Straw Hats quite early, and I actually quite like that, because not only does it give him more layers, but it really changes the dynamic that he has with the other characters pretty dramatically. With Alvida, I did like her overall, but to me she felt like the most forgettable villain from this season. As I said, she only really has a brief appearance in this season compared to the other characters, so maybe they're going to save her more for season 2 and they're going to develop her a lot more and we see a little bit more of her backstory there. I really hope they do, because they have built up a very promising character, so I am really looking forward to seeing what it is that they can do with her in the future. But as for the other antagonists, we have Axehand Morgan, and I'll give you 3 guesses as to why he's called that, played by Langley Kirkwood. There's Buggy the Clown, who is played, to my surprise, by Jeff Ward. There's Arlong, who acts as the central antagonist towards the second half of the season, played by McKinley Belcher III. Plus my favourite called Myhawk, played by Stephen John Ward, who just shows up, looks cool, takes out a ship with his sword, gets into one of the best fights of the show with Zoro, and that's really it. He is awesome, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with his character and the rivalry he has with Zoro. And finally, the creepiest antagonist of the bunch, Claredor, played by Alexander Maniatis. He is really unsettling and gets to appear in one of the best episodes. I did find it a little bit strange that when you first meet him, you see how it is that he adjusts his glasses, and he doesn't do it like a normal person, like shifting the rims or like around the lenses or pushing it from the middle or anything like that. No. He uses the palm of his hands. But I like that they do show him doing that, because it does make you immediately think that something is up with this character. So when they do show why he adjusts his glasses like that, it does make sense. There really is a great mix of villains, with some being more intimidating than others, some scarier, but their looks, their powers and their personalities are all memorable. They each bring something different to the show and give each episode a different flavour, and I like that they all feel like actual threats. I really enjoyed seeing these characters, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with them in the future and who they introduce. I will admit, when it comes comes to the style of this season, the visuals as well as the design, this really does feel like an anime brought to life. And that was the thing that I was most worried about for this season, because as I said in my reviews for the Spider-Verse movies, not everything that works in animation or comic books or 2D can be translated well into 3D live action. One Piece honestly is translated pretty well and really embraces the anime influences, especially how everything looks, from the overly exaggerated weapons like swords and guns to the costumes that shockingly look pretty good in motion. And that even goes for the mad and colourful hairstyles that a lot of these characters have. And then there's the makeup for several of the main characters, who can have anything from replaced limbs to full latex masks and noses, like Arlong, who's meant to look like a shark, and Buggy, who looks like a clown. It works way better than I thought it would. There was a bit of me that did think that it might come across as just a cosplay or like a fan film, but it really does fit the tone of this show and it does work overall. I do genuinely think they are great adaptations of their 2D counterparts. The designs are genuinely fantastic overall. They look pretty realistic for the most part and they never look out of place. That being said, I do think that the overall style that they have gone for within this season can be a little bit mixed, and I'm more referring to some of the camera angles as well as the editorial choices that they did make throughout this season. One of which is the sort of fishbowl-esque look that they've gone for with some of their camera angles and some of like the extreme close-ups, and I'm not 100% on board with it. Plus they do that thing that most animes tend to do when they have two characters who are about to face off, and they have that sort of split screen effect with like a close-up of the character's eyes whenever they're staring at each other. I don't mind it overall, but they only use it a couple of times and it does kind of feel a little bit out of nowhere. There's also this thing that they do every time they introduce one of the pirates, where a poster appears and the pirate slaps it out of the way, which to me is a little bit out of place for the style most of the show does have, but it is a fun addition and I'm guessing it's more there to reference the source material. In all honesty, it didn't really bother me that much. I did quite like some of those additions because it does make this stand out a little bit more, but I can see it being a little bit much for some people and it might put a few people off. One thing I do need to say about this series is it is a very action oriented series with lots of different action sequences and big set pieces sprinkled throughout. And how is it all? Honestly, pretty amazing. The action throughout this season really shocked me simply because of how good it actually was, with a great mix of sequences including ship battles, sword fights, shootouts and old-fashioned fist fights. That is a mouthful to say. They really helped to keep this series lively with some brilliant stunt work and imaginative choreography that manages to find a way of balancing character moments, over-the-top finishing moves straight out of an anime, and the characters' abilities. There can be a few more brutal and slightly gorier moments sprinkled throughout this, but it's never excessive and it doesn't feel forced. I would say that this series is kind of like a hard PG-13 rated series, but I would stress caution for younger viewers. Over here in the UK it's rated at 15 and yeah, I think that's the right rating for this. To me it does earn that certificate and there are definitely a few moments that did kind of catch me off guard. So despite this series being built around friendship and following your dreams, I would stress caution if you are planning on watching this series with younger viewers. I will say I loved seeing how practical these action sequences are, with lots of wire work utilised and excellent cinematography that really emphasises what each character can do and the work that has gone into this. And it's great how hands-on the actors are, with each of them getting stuck in and doing a lot of the stunt work themselves. Some of them have had training in the past and others have had none, but they all do some fantastic work and it really pays off. And even the effects are surprisingly pretty good too. In fact, they not only rival a lot of the biggest films out there, but they look so much better than several new releases this year. The effects are really well used and there's a good mix of both real and CG work that helps sell what's happening. So much so that the more over the top elements really look good and you never get taken out of any moment. Whether that's an action scene involving powers or the crew encountering a giant sea monster. It's not flawless by any means, especially when it comes to the use of green screen throughout some of these episodes, but these moments are just moments and they are few and far between. The practical and CG effects in this series are genuinely great, and the work that has gone in to help realise and build this world is genuinely incredible. And that absolutely applies to the multiple ships used throughout this series, as according to the showrunner Matt Owens, they actually built them for real, which is just phenomenal. But one effect that is used throughout this series that really caught me off guard is what it is that Luffy is able to do, and I genuinely was not expecting it. Now, I thought the show was going to be fairly grounded. As I said earlier, I'm not familiar with the source material, so I was quite surprised seeing the trailers and finding out that some people in this world develop abilities after consuming a mystical fruit called devil fruit, and the one that Luffy had gave him stretchy powers, not unlike Mr. Fantastic or Elastigirl, where his body is now rubber. But what surprised me more than anything was how well realised it was, to the point where it not only looks good, but to me, this is the best live action depiction of these abilities by far. They genuinely look great without feeling too cartoony, and the way that his powers are used throughout the fights and how Iñaki portrays these abilities really sells the believability, and I genuinely could not be happier seeing this. There's hope for Mr. Fantastic and Plastic Man yet. The mystery of the devil fruits is something that I hope does get answered in the future. I hope in season 2 we get to see more kinds of devil fruits and different kinds of abilities that they give people, and I'm sure there are loads more on the way. And as for the mystery itself, I don't think that's going to get answered anytime soon, but that's pretty cool with me as long as the show remains entertaining, and I definitely think it will. I've also got to quickly mention the soundtrack by Sonia Belensova and Giona Ostinelli. It's not the most memorable soundtrack, but it is pretty good overall. It really fits the setting and the tone and style that this series does have, and I like that each of the characters as well as the different locations do have their own unique theme, because to me that helps differentiate the episodes and helps give each episode its own unique feel. I really did like the soundtrack overall, and I'll be honest, the song that they used in episode 8 I actually think is a really good choice too. Overall, this show really surprised me. It is a load of fun with excellent characters played by some fantastic actors. There's a good sense of adventure and it keeps the right pace with each episode providing something new and fun. It can be cheesy, it can be over the top, but it fits the tone and it really embraces the fact that this is a live action anime. From the sets, costumes, props and more, it is the best live action anime adaptation I have seen, and it is brought to life in a brilliant and believable way with some great visuals and effects accompanied by a good soundtrack. The comedy can be a little hit and miss, and I personally wasn't a fan of the fishbowl look, but that didn't really bother me. This was an absolute blast from start to finish. It is highly enjoyable and entertaining, and I would absolutely recommend seeing this, especially if you're a fan of anime or manga. It won't be for everyone, but I would still highly encourage you to give it a go. So with all that being said, my rating for the live action adaptation of One Piece Season 1 is an 8 out of 10. I really got into this show and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the Straw Hats get up to in season 2, which apparently is actually happening. They didn't cancel it. Well done Netflix, I didn't know you had it in you. But just before I wrap this video up, I do need to very quickly advise that if you do decide to check this series out, make sure you keep some snacks or food nearby, because I guarantee you will be very hungry after watching this. Well, that is pretty much everything I want to say for this video, so if you have watched this video, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy this content, please like, please subscribe and hit the notification button to keep up to date on everything that's going on here. If you have seen the first season of One Piece, let me know down in the comments what you think about it. Plus, if you have any suggestions for any future Rewind reviews you would like to see me do, let me know down below. I do need to quickly mention that this channel has managed to gain over 300 subscribers, and genuinely, every single person, I know I say this every single time, every single one of you who's been supporting this channel from the days that it began all the way back in 2022 all the way through till now, thank you so much for all the support. It really means a lot. Halloween is just around the corner, so keep an eye out for some spooky content coming within the next few weeks. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Rewind Reviews. See you guys.